Welcome back to the Top 1% Book Club. You know how this works. We take the most powerful insights from the best self-improvement books to help you level up your life, right?
Right.
Well, today, we're going deep on a book club. I know a lot of our listeners have been asking about Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson.
One of my favorites for sure.
It's all about deliberate practice and how it can help you achieve mastery in pretty much any field. So, to help us unpack it all, we've got our expert here. I know you've spent a ton of time with this book. What are some of the big takeaways for you?
I think one of the most interesting things is just how much it challenges the idea that success is all about innate talent.
Yeah.
Like some people are just born gifted and the rest of us are just kind of stuck where we are.
Right, exactly.
Ericsson spent decades studying top performers. We're talking musicians, athletes, chess players, you name it. And the thing is,
Yeah.
he never found a single case where somebody reached the very top without putting in tons and tons of work.
So no shortcuts to the top, huh?
Nope, no shortcuts. It's not about some magic talent gene or anything like that. It all boils down to consistent, dedicated effort over a long period of time. And the key here is not just any effort, but deliberate practice.
Okay, so let's break down this whole deliberate practice thing, because I think a lot of people might hear that and think, oh, I just got to spend hours and hours doing something, right? Like, is that really all it is?
It's way more nuanced than just putting in the hours. Think about it this way. Like, imagine you're trying to learn how to play the piano.
Oh.
You could spend hours just playing the same simple song over and over again, you know?
Yeah.
And you might get pretty good at that one song, but you're not really challenging yourself or getting any better overall. That's what Ericsson calls a naive practice. You're not really pushing yourself or getting any better overall.
Okay, so it's not about quantity, it's about quality, right?
Exactly. It's about quality. Deliberate practice is about setting specific goals for yourself, figuring out your weaknesses, and then like pushing yourself just outside of your comfort zone to address those weaknesses.
Okay.
It's also about actively getting feedback, whether that's from a coach, a mentor, or even just recording yourself and then like analyzing your performance. And then the important part is using that feedback to keep refining your approach.
So it's like a constant cycle of pushing yourself, getting that feedback, and then adjusting how you do things based on that feedback, right?
Exactly. That's the cycle. And here's the amazing thing. When you actually engage in this kind of deliberate practice, your brain starts to like rewire itself.
Oh, like in that study with the London cab drivers, right?
Yes. The London cab driver.
The ones who have to memorize, like that crazy complex map of the entire city.
Exactly. They found that those cabbies actually developed a larger hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that's all about spatial memory and navigation.
Wow.
Their brains physically changed because of how much they were pushing themselves, you know?
So it's not just about like learning a skill, it's actually about like changing your brain, shaping
Yeah.
your brain.
That's exactly it. And that's one of the most powerful things about what Ericsson's saying. Our potential isn't just fixed. Like, we can actually grow our capabilities if we practice the right way.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
So if our brains are really changing like that, what's actually happening at a deeper level? Like, how are we getting better?
Well, when you engage in deliberate practice, you're not just building up muscle memory. You're also building what Ericsson calls mental representations.
Mental representations. What exactly are those?
It's like building a super detailed mental map of whatever field you're in. The more you practice, the more accurate and in-depth that map becomes.
Yeah.
And then it allows you to see patterns that other people might miss, make decisions faster, and respond better in like really complicated situations.
No, it's like having this internal GPS for your area of expertise.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's like your internal GPS. And the more you practice, the more powerful that GPS becomes.
This makes me think about those people who just seem to have this intuitive grasp of their field, you know? Like they can just see things that others can't. Are they just born with those mental representations or what?
That's where Erickson really challenges that whole idea of like innate talent. You know, he's
Right.
saying those experts have built those detailed mental representations through years and years, sometimes even decades of deliberate practice.
So it's not magic, it's like mental models that they've honed through tons of effort.
Exactly. They've gone through countless scenarios, made thousands of decisions, and gotten feedback every step of the way. And that's why they can perform at a level that seems almost superhuman to everyone else.
That is so fascinating because it really changes how we think about learning and developing skills. You know,
It does.
it's not about some magical talent. It's about putting in the right kind of effort.
And I think that's what makes Ericsson's work so empowering. It shows us that these extraordinary abilities aren't just for a select few. They're within reach for anyone who's willing to embrace that process of deliberate practice.
I'm already starting to think about how I can apply this stuff to my own life. I bet our listener is too.
Absolutely.
As we continue this deep dive, we'll explore some specific strategies for actually incorporating deliberate practice into your daily routine and getting past those plateaus we all face, right?
That's right.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay with us. It's interesting, isn't it, this whole thing about mental representations. It really challenges how we think about creative
You
geniuses.
mean like that idea that they're just born with this incredible insight, these abilities?
Yeah, like it's all just this like spontaneous burst of inspiration, right? But Ericsson's saying that even like the most groundbreaking innovations, they come from a long process of deliberate practice, you know? It's all iterative.
So it's more about showing up consistently, honing your craft, pushing those boundaries instead of just waiting for like the muse to strike or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Think about Mozart. Everyone calls him a prodigy, right? But his father, a professional musician, he trained Mozart rigorously from like a very young age.
So even Mozart, his genius wasn't just like pure talent. It was cultivated through all that practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and he had expert guidance from his father, which is another super important piece of deliberate practice. It's not just about putting in the hours. You got to understand what you're aiming for, you know, and how to actually get there.
Right? So it makes you think about feedback, right?
Yeah.
How important that is in the learning process.
Oh, absolutely. Feedback is crucial. It helps you refine those mental representations, see where you're missing things, you know. And it can come from a mentor, a coach, even from recording yourself and then analyzing it, like we talked about before.
So it's about being open to that constructive criticism and using it to actually grow, right?
Exactly. And the more we practice seeking out that feedback, the better we get at self-monitoring and like making those little course corrections as we go.
Speaking of course corrections,
Mhm.
what about those times when you hit a plateau? How do you know if you're just in a slump or if you need to like totally rethink how you're approaching something?
That's a really good question. You know, Erickson suggests that when you feel stuck like that, try pushing yourself a little harder than usual and just see where you break down first. It's like
Okay.
you're stress testing a system to find the weak points.
So instead of getting discouraged by those plateaus, you can actually use them as opportunities, right, to grow.
Totally. They can show you those hidden bottlenecks that are holding you back.
That's a really helpful way to think about it.
So once you've identified that sticking point, you can come up with specific practice techniques to work on that weakness, right? And sometimes those sticking points, they're not even technical, they're mental.
Oh, you mean like limiting beliefs we have about ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. Like we might be focusing on the wrong things or holding ourselves back with negative self-talk, you know?
So it's not just about developing the skills, it's about developing the right mindset too.
Absolutely. We need to cultivate self-awareness, resilience, that growth mindset, and that's where Erickson's work can be so powerful. It shifts the focus from innate ability to deliberate practice, which is something we can all control.
It's about taking ownership of your own development and focusing on those things you can do to improve step by step,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And the more we embrace that growth mindset, the more we can unlock our potential and open ourselves up to possibilities we never even thought of. You know, one thing I really appreciate about Erickson is that he doesn't just like completely dismiss natural talent.
No.
He acknowledges that some people might have certain predispositions that give them a bit of a head start,
Right, right.
but he argues that even those advantages, they won't turn into expertise without deliberate practice.
So it's like those predispositions are just as starting points, the consistent effort and focused training that really make the difference, right?
Precisely. And sometimes those initial advantages can actually become a hindrance in the long run.
Oh, how so?
Well, if someone just relies on their natural talent, they might not develop the discipline and work ethic they need to really reach the top level. They might hit a plateau and never get past it because they haven't learned how important deliberate practice is.
So it's like the hare and the tortoise. Right?
Exactly.
The tortoise, with their slow and steady practice, they end up surpassing the hare who's just relying on that initial burst of speed.
Perfect analogy. It highlights the power of consistency and perseverance, you know?
It's not about being naturally gifted. It's about showing up every day and putting in the work. Now, I'm curious about something you said earlier. You mentioned deliberate practice is most effective in certain fields.
Right, right.
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so Erickson emphasizes that deliberate practice works best in fields that have like well-defined standards, established training methods, and a culture that really values excellence.
So like music, chess, sports, things like that.
Exactly. Those domains have those clear pathways to mastery. They have expert instructors, rigorous training programs, and that constant drive to push boundaries. Think about it. If you want to be a world-class violinist, there's a well-established path you can follow. You start with basic scales, work with experienced teachers, you compete, you constantly refine your technique.
Basically having a roadmap and a support system all built in.
Yeah, exactly. And that supportive environment, it makes a huge difference in how quickly and how effectively someone can develop.
It makes me think about those times I've tried to learn something on my own without any guidance. It's like you're wandering in a maze, hitting dead ends and getting discouraged.
That's why it's so crucial to seek out those expert mentors, find communities that support your growth, they can give you that invaluable feedback, help you see your blind spots, and keep you motivated when you hit those inevitable plateaus.
So it's not just about the work you do on your own, it's about who you surround yourself with as well.
100%. And that's why Ericsson talks about the importance of pathfinders. Those people who have already achieved mastery and are willing to share what they've learned.
They've already blazed the trail, so to speak,
Yeah.
and they can help guide others along the way.
Exactly. They can help you avoid those common pitfalls and really speed up your progress.
So it's about being proactive in finding those mentors, those communities, those resources that can help you grow.
Yes. And that can be anything from finding a great coach or teacher to joining a professional organization to just connecting with people who share your passion. And once you have that support system in place, you can really focus on those deliberate practice strategies we've been talking about.
Setting those specific goals, pushing past your comfort zone, consistently seeking feedback, all that.
Exactly. It's like having all the pieces in place to build a masterpiece.
This has been such an eye-opening look into this whole science of expertise. I'm already feeling inspired to apply these principles to my own life. What stood out to you the most from Ericsson's work?
For me, it's the optimism. He doesn't believe in fixed limits or predetermined potential. He sees people as incredibly adaptable, capable of achieving extraordinary things if we put in the right kind of effort.
That's powerful.
It is. And it's a reminder that we're not defined by our current abilities, but by our capacity for growth and transformation.
I love that. And as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. What if you approached every area of your life with that mindset of deliberate practice? What if you embraced that challenge of constant improvement, not just in your work, but in your relationships, your health, your personal growth?
That's a great question to think about.
The possibilities are truly endless.
They are. It's funny how this all ties back to, like, mental representations.
Oh, right, those detailed mental maps that experts build up.
Exactly. And Erickson's saying those representations aren't just about knowledge and skills, they're about mindset too.
So how we think about ourselves or abilities, it actually shapes how much we can grow.
100%, yeah. If you believe talent is fixed, you're way more likely to just give up when things get tough.
Makes sense.
But if you have that growth mindset, you see those challenges as opportunities, a chance to learn and develop.
It's making me think about those 4 stages of expertise that Ericsson talks about in the book.
Oh, yeah, right.
He says the journey to mastery isn't just a straight line, it's more like a spiral, right?
Exactly, yeah. And each stage has its own, like, challenges and characteristics.
Can you walk us through those stages? I'm curious to see how they actually play out, in the real world.
Yeah, for sure. So the first stage, it's all about playful exploration. It's that spark of curiosity, like what draws you to a field in the first place, like a kid picking up a musical instrument for the first time.
Just having fun, experimenting, not worried about being perfect yet.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's when those early mental representations start forming.
Okay.
Then, as you get more serious, you move into stage 2, focused learning.
So now we're taking classes, working with instructors, really honing those skills.
Right, exactly. You're still relying on some guidance, but you're developing a deeper understanding of the basics. It's all about building a solid foundation.
Got it.
Then things get really interesting with stage 3, intense, independent commitment.
This is where we push past our comfort zone.
Exactly. You're not just content with being, like, competent anymore. You want to excel. And that takes a lot of dedication and discipline.
I can imagine.
It makes me think about, like, elite athletes training for hours every day,
Right?
pushing their bodies to the limit,
Yeah.
or musicians practicing in isolation,
Yeah.
striving for that perfect performance. And this is where deliberate practice becomes so crucial.
Because you're not just going through the motions anymore. You're actively seeking out those challenges.
Exactly. You're pushing yourself to improve.
Yeah.
And then finally, you reach stage 4, creative contribution.
So now we're not just mastering a field. We're actually contributing to it.
Right. Yeah. Think about those scientists who make groundbreaking discoveries or artists who create whole new genres of music. They've reached a level where they're not just following the rules, they're rewriting them.
That's so inspiring.
It is.
It shows how deliberate practice isn't just about skill. It's about unlocking your creativity, making a real impact on the world.
Absolutely. And the big takeaway here is that mastery is a lifelong journey. It's not about reaching some destination. It's about embracing that constant challenge of getting better, growing.
And it's a journey anyone can take, no matter where you come from or what your natural abilities are.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to think about one skill you'd love to master.
Ooh, good question.
And then ask yourself, what's one tiny step you can take today to start incorporating deliberate practice?
It's all about setting those intentions, finding those mentors, and embracing those challenges.
Yeah.
And as Ericsson says, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right. So be patient, be persistent, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into peak and the science of expertise. We hope you found some useful insights to apply to your own life.
Remember, the potential for greatness is in all of us.
We just need to unlock it through deliberate practice and a commitment to growth. Until next time, keep pushing those limits and striving for your peak.
Absolutely.